Chivalry isn't dead, but it actually might be. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about a movie called The Green Knight. It's directed by David Lowery, whose most notable public film has been Pete's Dragon Remake, which was okay. The Green Knight follows Gawain in his travels as he's searching for something to make him a knight. He wants to be a knight. He wants to have stories to tell around the table. An opportunity presents itself when this mystical creature called the Green Knight comes into the dining area during a Christmas celebration with King Arthur and all of the knights. And he says basically, if one of your knights can land a blow on me, then you get to keep my axe. And in 1 year's time, come visit me at this location and I will deal the same blow that you dealt to me, I'll deal back to you. So Gawain decides to take this challenge and strikes the Green Knight. This follows Gawain on his quest to make good with the promise he made to the Green Knight and the situations and problems that he experiences along the way. This movie has a handful of good actors in it. Dev Patel, Aaron Kellyman, Alicia Vikander, Joe Edgerton. Before I dive into the 6 things that make a movie great, I want to talk about a couple things that I really liked about this film. There was a couple really awesome sequences that involved characters that I wish they would have done more with. But one sequence in particular involving Winifred was incredibly shot and incredibly acted. And the overall undertone of this film is that your integrity is more important than fame or reputation that you seek among other people. And I can get behind that. And that's a cool message for this film to have. I just don't really agree with how they got there. But in addition to that, some of the camera pans in this movie are really vivid, they're really vibrant, and it's really cool. I do think they spend way too much time doing it though. Without further ado, let's dive into the 6 things that make a movie great. 1. The plot. The plot of this movie is simple but intriguing. Someone who is seeking their knighthood and seeking to be honorable and have fame without looking at anything else. The plot of this movie is good, but it's super convoluted. And unfortunately, it's almost like David Lowery just is tripping on acid the entire movie. The feeling that I got while watching this movie was almost the exact same as watching the movie Tenet. These movies are not comparable as far as excellence goes, because in my opinion Tenet is a fantastic movie. The plot is just very difficult to understand. This movie, there's absolutely no synergy, no connection between each of the scenes. It's like someone created a bunch of scenes, threw them up there and said, I want these together. I don't know how we're going to connect them. Yeah, it's basically like you're just tripping on acid the entire movie. Like I said, I was able to pick out the underlying theme of this movie, which was that integrity is the most important thing of all. Seeking their knighthood and wanting to be something greater than what they are. And that is very intriguing. But a lot of what this movie ended up doing didn't involve a lot of that. It was very, very confusing. The plot itself is very simple, but they distract it with a lot of things, and it didn't end up panning out very well. So if you're just looking at the plot in and of itself in simplicity, it's a thumbs up. But if you include everything else that David Lowery did with this movie, it's a thumbs down. Number 2 is family friendliness. I was very disappointed with this movie with the concept of family friendliness, because it easily could have been rated PG-13. There were two scenes that were very, very brief that drove it to the R rating. And it was pointless. There's one scene that involves these giant beings that are female, and you see them naked. There is no reason why they couldn't be clothed. Absolutely none, because they're not integral to the plot whatsoever. And I will say there was a moment, like this happened in the theater last night. Gawain shouts to them, "Hey, which way do I go? Like, can I ride on your shoulder?" And it immediately made me think of the Simpsons movie and the Alaskan boob lady. God forgive me for saying that. It literally was reminiscent of that scene for me. Long story short, this movie's not family friendly for that, and there's also one other scene where something inappropriate happens, and it's referenced later in the film as well. But the issue is that it was not crucial to the plot, and it actually distracts from the underlying message that they're wanting to portray. And so I wish they would have taken that out, and if they did take out those 2 things to make 2 very small changes to what they chose to film, this movie easily could have been PG-13 and your demographic would have been much bigger. Because they didn't do that, as far as family friendliness goes, is thumbs down. Acting and script. All the acting in this movie was great. You have all the means to do something great, and all the actors did a really good job. I think specifically for me, the person who stole the show wasn't Dev Patel. The person who stole the movie was Erin Kellyman. Her performance in the scene where Gawain is interacting with Winifred is incredible, and I love that sequence probably more than any other sequence in the movie. There are moments throughout this movie that have touches of humor, and that made me want to love this movie because it was subtle humor you would only catch if you were really paying attention. I loved those parts of this movie. Erin Kellyman did a fantastic job. Everyone else just did okay. As far as the script goes, not only did the scenes distract from things, but it seemed like people kind of just went on these ethereal rants that didn't make much sense to anything, and they didn't end up having any value later either. It was just as difficult to follow as the actual shooting of the movie was, and the general dissonance between the scenes. I mean, people delivered lines well, but it didn't make much sense overall. Huge props to Erin Kellyman, thumbs down for acting and script. Number 4 is character development. One of the things I loved about this movie was that it had an underlying theme in which you get to see the character of Gawain develop, and I thought for sure with this movie having "Chivalry isn't dead" as its tagline that would be what we got. Unfortunately, it wasn't. You get to see a lot of character progression with Gawain, but the character development doesn't exist. So the definition of chivalry that I'm going to use as a Google definition is the combination of qualities expected of an ideal knight, especially courage, honor, courtesy, justice, and a readiness to help the weak. I don't think that this movie portrays that. You don't see Gawain develop any of these things. He's not courageous, he's not honorable, he's not ready to help the weak unless he gets something in return. There are no other characters in this film that really get character development except for maybe King Arthur himself. So you get to see some of the emotional side of him, and honestly I think his character has more depth than Gawain himself. And a lot of people are like, yeah, this movie's not about King Arthur, I love that it's just Gawain's tale. And I'm like, I think that King Arthur actually showed more personality depth than Gawain did. That probably will piss some people off, and I don't really care, because this is my opinion. Overall, character development, this is a character piece on Gawain. It's just not very well done, and so I have to give it a thumbs down. The CG in this movie, to me, was 50-50. There was some CG that was amazing, but there was other CG that really stood out. So I have to call 50-50 on this one because it is what it is. It is what it do. And number 6 is rewatchability. Unfortunately, this movie had the potential to be one that you would go back and watch as one of the classic night films that we all hoped it was going to be. I would never watch this movie again. It has a 2-hour and 17-minute runtime, and it easily could have been an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes. It's like they shot a scene, and you know how you get extra footage to make sure you have enough? It's like they didn't clip any of that. They just kept it all. And a lot of it is unnecessary because you're able to see the beauty and the vivid nature of these shots in a normal shot frame, but they didn't do that. And it really drug out the movie. You were intrigued for a while, but nothing made sense. And you come to the end of the film and you're like, I can see the underlying theme of this movie, but what we went through to get there was not done the best, and overall it wasn't worth it. So unfortunately I have to give rewatchability a thumbs down. I'll never watch this movie again. Overall, this film had so much potential, but ultimately was very distracted and very confusing. And I'd be really interested in knowing how much of it was David Lowery's influence and how much of it was the actual manuscript of The Green Knight. I think if you have a really good director make this movie, it would be incredible because the source material has everything there, everything you need for the makings of a great film. Unfortunately, this rendition of The Green Knight by David Lowery, in my opinion, gets a 5 out of 10. I think there are much better ways that you could spend your evening than watching this film, and I would not waste your money to go see it in theaters. So if you've seen The Green Knight, please let me know in the comments below if you think I hit the nail on the head, or if you're like, Peter, you don't understand art, and you're a disgrace to filmmaking everywhere. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you guys and gals have a great week, and I'll catch you in the next video.